episode 13 of our Little Harbour Homewares shop series. Now the first project I want to tackle in today's episode is the shop counter. So I'm going to start off by making a design and then we'll get it built. So let's get started. Okay, so again I'm starting off by having a look at the plan. And the shop counter is going to sit here, so just inside that front left-hand window. And we're going to have a little bit of a walkway around here, which I'm going to leave about 1.5 inches for. So in real life that would be 1.5 feet, which again probably isn't sort of regulations, but I think we can get away with it in miniature. So the actual shop counter is 134 millimeters wide by 76 high by 50 deep. So that's about just over 5 inches, about 5¼ inches by 3 inches high and 2 inches deep. And then what I thought we'd do, because the door will sort of open this side, and when the shop's open the door will be open, so customers won't be able to get in through there. And we'll have like a little rope across here to stop people from getting around the back there, which can just sort of hook off so that the staff can get round to the back of the counter. And also I'm going to have the counter, I've done some little drawings here. This is the back, so at the back of the counter we'll just have a single shelf, so we'll have 2 really long shelves in there where we can put lots of little bits. And then this will be the front of the counter. So I'm going to do some grooves along the front, and then we'll put some mouldings on, and we'll do like a little plinth at the bottom. But the counter will be facing into the shop, so that will sort of face into the shop, and then these open shelves at the back will face the front so that we'll be able to see those as we look into the shop, which I think will be quite nice. So I'll do some measurements now, create a cutting list, and then we can get started. Okay, so start off by cutting the 2 front panels, the side pieces, and the top, bottom and shelf pieces, which are 3 pieces of the same size. And once again I'm using 2 pieces for the front panel, simply because we need the grain to go from top to bottom so that we can score our grooves, and we therefore need to cut a piece that is 127 millimeters wide. Now the sheet wood that I use is 100 millimeters wide, so that's why I'm doing it this way. But of course if you've got wider sheet wood, then you can cut a piece that is 127 millimeters wide by 63.5 millimeters high, with the grain going along the shortest edge. In this case our pieces are square, but you want to place them so that the grain, as I say, goes from top to bottom. And we're actually going to begin by joining these 2 pieces together. So apply a line of glue along one edge in the direction of the grain. And that's obviously because you can't score grooves into a piece of wood going against the grain. You'll just get sort of jiggly lines. So push those 2 pieces together so you've got a nice flush edge along the top and bottom. Press them flat against your work surface and together at the same time. And then I've got here, I'll just get rid of that glue, you shouldn't really wipe it on your finger, do wash your hands if you do that. I've got here a couple of pieces of masking tape for each side. I'm going to put a piece across there, a little bit across the bottom as well. Keep pushing the pieces together, turn like that, and again put another couple of pieces on there. And that piece can then be left to dry and we can prepare our side pieces. So take one of the side pieces and we're going to be scoring grooves down this piece, and to do that I'm going to be using a flathead screwdriver. So begin by making pencil marks at the top and bottom of the piece, and these are going to be 6 millimeters or 1/4 inch apart. So just do little light lines like that. And the same along the bottom. millimetres or 1/4 of an inch intervals. Oops. Like that. And then turn the piece and position the rule so it's just sitting below the pencil marks, and that will allow for the thickness of the flathead screwdriver. And we just want to use the very sort of corner of the flathead there. So just begin by making a really light score in the wood. Just go along really lightly like that. And then you can do a couple of more scores, a little bit heavier this time. And then just work your way along until you've got a nice score along there. Like that. Do that all the way along. Remember to place the rule just below the pencil marks. And by doing that light score to start, you're more likely to keep the flathead screwdriver on track. If you go at it sort of too heavy, then the screwdriver will just sort of go off across the wood where we don't want it to. Once you get about halfway down, turn the wood around and start from the top again. Otherwise your ruler will tip off the end. And then take a small piece of sandpaper and fold it in half, or just fold it to make a sort of sharp line like that. And then we're going to work that along each of those grooves. So just put it in like that and just work it along. And that makes a more sort of definite groove, but also gets rid of those pencil marks. Use a soft brush to get rid of the dust, and then do the same with the remaining side piece. So once you've allowed enough time for the glue to dry, you can remove the masking tape. And we're now ready to score the grooves into this piece as well. So before we make our pencil marks for the grooves, we're going to mark out where the mouldings will sit. So begin by doing a little pencil mark 5 millimeters from what will become the left hand edge. And do that at the other end as well. We're then going to do a pencil mark 40.5 millimeters from the left hand edge, and that's 1 and 19/32. So 40.5 like that, and again 40.5 from the other edge, 1 and 19/32. And then our next mouldings will sit on the inside of these marks. So again, you want to do another 5 millimeter pencil mark from there, 5 millimeters, 13/64 of an inch, and then the same back from that one, so in towards the centre, 5 millimeters, 13/64 of an inch, and we're then going to repeat those along the bottom edge. So the first one is 5 millimeters, 13/64 of an inch, same from the other end, and then 40.5 millimeters from each edge, 1 and 19/32, and then 5 millimeters in from that mark, 13/64, and 5 from that one. And when we join these up, it will all become clear. So then turn the piece like that, place the rule just below the pencil marks, and join those up. And we're just sectioning it off with where the mouldings will be placed, which will make it easier to calculate where we want the grooves. So that way to do that one. Like So you'll have a piece that's sort of now divided into 3 sections, and this is where our vertical mouldings will sit. And we're now going to divide each of these into 6mm or 1/4 of an inch sections, and that's where we'll make the grooves. So 6mm, and so do the little pencil mark at the bottom, or top and bottom of each section, and it doesn't divide exactly in each section. You'll have one slightly narrower groove, but it's not going to be noticeable. And the same in the centre, 6mm again, and then in that end one. And it was just so much easier doing it this way than giving you all of those sort of separate pencil marks all along there, so that's why I'm doing it like this. Okay, and you can bring in your flathead screwdriver. So turn the piece, place the rule just below the first little set of pencil marks, and begin with your light score. And then work your way down the piece. And again, when you get near the end, just turn and start from the other side, just so that your ruler's not sort of rocking off the edge of the wood. There we are. And then again, you can bring in a piece of sandpaper, make a little crease, and then work it into each of the grooves. And again, get rid of your dust. And we're now ready to begin construction. So we're now almost ready to begin construction. We're just going to put some pencil lines across the back and side pieces for placement of that central shelf. Now normally when we have a piece where we apply mouldings, we would do that before we then begin construction. But because these pieces are actually going to join to each other rather than to the legs, we'll be applying the mouldings once we've constructed this piece, and that way we can overlap the side piece with the top moulding. So the outer edge mouldings will be slightly wider and the top one will be 3mm longer than the back piece to allow for the side pieces as well, and that way the whole piece blends into one. So we're going to begin by making those pencil lines, and so we don't have to do that 3 times, I'm going to join these pieces together. So make sure you've got a nice flush line along the top there, and then you can just use a little bit of masking tape like that. Same at the other side, and then pop a couple of pieces at the bottom edge as well. And we're going to do the pencil line 33mm, and that's 1 19/64 of an inch from what will become this top edge. So do a little pencil mark at each end, 33mm. This is another of those pieces that doesn't fit all in camera. So 33mm, 1 19/64 of an inch. Place the rule just below and join that up, and then carry that line onto the front edge of those side pieces, and that will help when we come to place that central shelf. So remove the masking tape, and then we're going to begin by attaching the side piece to the outer edge of the back piece. So apply glue along the edge of the back piece. Press it flat against your work surface and then attach that side, and that you should have a nice flush line along the top, and your pencil line will join up as well. So press those 2 pieces together. Remove any excess glue from along that join. Careful not to knock the side piece out of place. Like that. And we can then attach the top, and that will sit on the inside edge of these joined pieces, again so that it's flush with the top. So apply glue to a short and a long edge. If you get it lined up along the back first, go round the back and sort of make sure you've got that nice flush line. And then you can pull that side bit in to meet it, and that will square it off. Make sure it's pushed right into that top corner. Got a good firm press. Just have a look from the back there. You've still got time to sort of manoeuvre at this stage if you need to. The glue wouldn't have started to take yet. I'm going to press and hold for a moment just because I can feel that it's trying to sort of come away. Again, it's because we're working on a slightly longer piece. Again, remove your excess glue. Haven't got too much in there this time. And we're now going to attach the central shelf, and this will sit just above that pencil line we just made. So again, apply your glue to a short and a long edge. Again, get it lined up along the back first, so it's sitting above the line, and sort of try and hide the line as well. And then you can use that little mark we made on the front of the side piece to line it up at that end. Again, give it a good firm press. So we'll have some lovely deep shelves at the back of the counter where we'll be able to store the paper bags, the tissue paper, and all the other sort of little bits and pieces you see behind shop counters. Glue up there as well. Same with the bottom piece on the inside edge. So the actual structure of the counter is fairly simple, and I've used the grooves because I wanted it to sort of keep with that nautical theme, and I think grooves in wood does that. I think it has a sort of nautical feel to it. Don't know why, but I just feel that it does. But you can use this same structure and really alter it to whatever style of shop you're building. And I know one of our little bitses is building an Edwardian shop and wants to make this counter, so you maybe wouldn't do the grooves, but you could probably use some mouldings to create some panels, or even some squares of wood and bevel them along each edge and attach the panels to the sides and the front. So this basic structure will give you a good start for any sort of style. Again, I'm pulling that siding because it feels as though it's trying to sort of pull apart. I'm going to press those together and just hold for a moment. Once we've got this final side on, we can put lots of masking tape on it and really pull it all together. So we're now ready to attach the final side. So apply glue along those edges. And then attach that side, and I'm just going to pull the top and bottom piece up slightly with my fingers. And again, when you're working with the longer pieces of wood, making a larger piece of furniture, you'll find that they sort of try to pinch inwards. So just sort of carefully spread it all out and get the top and bottom to meet the top and bottom of the side piece. And then pull the little shelf up so it's sitting just above that pencil line there. And my shelf on this side is a little bit longer, so I've just cut that slightly off, but that's okay because once this is dry I can hold this flat against my sandpaper and sand and square all that off. Make sure you've got a nice flush line as well along, I was going to say the back, but it's actually the front of the counter. Just use your finger to do that. And I'm going to now get my masking tape, and we'll put a couple of pieces probably over each side and then across the front as well to really squeeze it all together. So I'm going to cut some nice long pieces. I'll put the first piece over like that. It feels quite fragile at this stage, but once we've got all those mouldings on and we've got our bottom plinth to add as well, it will become a more sort of sturdy piece. So don't worry if you think it feels a little bit flimsy at the moment. And that's the side, and as I was doing that I was making sure that the top and bottom were still staying sort of at the top and bottom of the side. I've got a little bit of daylight coming through there, so I'll put a bit across the back as well. So the tape's peeling up. So just really get it all carefully stuck down. And then I want to put a couple of pieces, I keep calling it the back, but this is the front of the counter, so across the front and then across the back as well. And that will really pull it all in nicely. So I'm going to do a couple of pieces, top and bottom across the front there. Turn that over, and I'm going to put a piece right across the middle. And even now my shelf's trying to lift, so even at this stage you could still move things around if you need to. The glue won't have set enough yet that you can't still move things. I'm going to put my final piece right across that shelf there. Pull it nice and tight, and you can give it a good press where the shelf is because it's adding a bit of support. There, and already that feels like a more solid piece. So that can now be left to dry. So whilst that piece is drying, we can construct the plinth, and this is really just going to be like a big drawer and then with a piece on top. So begin by applying glue along each end of the plinth base. Pop that back down and attach the sides, making sure you've got nice flush lines along the front and back. Press those together. Those as well. I'm going to grab my spare pieces of strip wood and just use those to press those into place. And it just helps to get a really good firm press on there, and you know then that you're applying even pressure all the way along. Give those a good press. Now I'm going to carry on. Normally I'd just let that glue dry off for a bit, but I really want to get this done today, so apply glue along the front and back. That's one thing I really like. Well, there's lots of things I like about this wood glue, but one of them is the fact that you can get on quite quickly. With some sort of PVAs, I find that you really have to wait quite a while before you can continue, otherwise the piece just sort of falls apart. So pop that down and then attach the front and back, and you might just need to pull the sides out to meet it like that. That one on as well. Pull that one out a little bit too. Just make sure you've got a nice sort of flush piece. So press those together. You can use your strip wood again, get some longer pieces if you have them. Just sort of move them along like that. And I am going to let this little bit dry off, and then I can give it a good sand so that I've got a nice flush top edge to attach the top piece to. Otherwise we'll have a wonky counter. So once that base piece has dried off enough, you can sand that to make sure you've got a nice flush top edge by holding it against your sandpaper quite firmly and go around in small circular motions. And then whenever I'm making an enclosed piece, I always either feel like popping something inside or writing something inside. So I've actually just put my name in there and the date, and chances are that will never ever be seen, but only we'll know that it's in there. So apply glue around the top edges. and then just put the top piece on top so you've got nice flush edges all the way around. Just use your fingers to make sure it's all flush. And we can sand this again once it's dry to make sure we've got a nice flush box piece. But what I'm actually going to do now is put a bit of kitchen towel on top, like that, and then weigh that down to dry just with a couple of pots of paint. So once I'd allowed enough time for the glue to dry, I removed the masking tape, and then I've sanded this on all sides and on the front as well, which got rid of that little bit of overhanging shelf that I had at one end, if you remember. So this is now a nice square piece, and we're ready to attach the mouldings. Now we'll start with the sides, and I've just cut my side mouldings just so that I haven't got bits everywhere all over my desk. So let me move the camera up a little bit. So we'll begin with the top and bottom mouldings on the side. So apply glue to the back of the moulding. And then lay that across that top edge. I keep checking that I'm still in shot there. You want a nice flush edge along the top of the counter, and this will all be covered with our countertop, and same along the bottom. Checking again for the nicest side before I attach it. And just use your fingers to make sure you've got a nice flush edge along there. You can always go round and sand again. Okay, give that a good press. And then I've cut these vertical ones to size, but if you find that they're a little bit long, then you can just trim a little bit off. So lay them into place, or one end into place. Bring your craft knife in. And then you want to make a little score with the knife of where you need to cut. But don't try and cut it in place, just make a little score. And then take that away from the piece and cut it on your work surface. Like that. And then I always just like to try again. Yep, and then you can cut the other one. So I need to take a little bit off there as well. Again, make the mark and then move it away from your piece and cut it like that. And then those two can be glued into place. We'll be in a much better sort of camera position when we're doing the front of the counter, just because we'll be able to lay it back down. Pop that in there. Nice flush edge along the front again. Give it a good press into place. We're just creating some nice little shapes with these, really. As I said earlier, you can really, you know, add mouldings and panellings and, you know, really make it suit your own style. You might want to use some of the sort of nautical shapes and things on it. I want to keep mine fairly simple. I just really liked the idea of the grooves sort of as soon as I sort of thought about the shop counter. I thought we've got to have grooves. Like I say, I don't know why, I just really feel that sort of the grooves or the shiplap look. I suppose that's why, shiplap. I really think it has a sort of nautical feel to it. Okay, Okay, let's do the other side as well. We're not going to be sort of clamping these on, so we'll really just sort of press them down as we go along. Again, flush front and flush top, so we don't have trouble gluing our top piece then into place. Giving that a good firm press down. Don't forget as well to remove your excess glue as you go along. And then do the same thing again with your vertical mouldings if you need to. You might have cut them exact. I think I cut mine before I'd sanded, that's why they're a little bit longer. So I cut them sort of according to the calculation, but because I've sanded and probably taken off a good millimetre or so, that's why they're longer than they should be. So you might find that. Go on the front edge first. So I didn't try that again, it's a little bit tight, but I quite like them being tight when you sort of have to almost pop them into place like that, rather than there being any little gaps or anything. We had a bit of a thunderstorm yesterday, and I think it might be happening again today. You know, when the air sort of goes really close and you get one of those sort of nagging headaches. I feel a little bit like that this afternoon. It was really nice out there earlier, really sunny. Okay, so that's that end as well. And whilst they're drying, I'm going to cut the mouldings now for the front. But I just wanted to show you, there's the plinth there, and again, when I'd left enough time for that to dry, I've sanded that on all sides, and that will sort of sit in the centre at the bottom of the counter there, giving us a little bit of an overhang at each edge. I think that looks quite nice. So I'll cut these front mouldings now and we can get those applied, and then we can actually attach the top and the plinth. So before we attach the mouldings, just begin by erasing those outer pencil lines. They were just there as a guide for where to begin the grooves, and we don't need those now. So get rid of those so they're not going to be visible. But leave the ones in the middle because we'll need those to line up those central mouldings. Okay, so we'll begin by attaching the top and bottom mouldings. So apply glue to the back of the moulding. Glue starting to go a little bit tacky. I'll use up what I can. So attach that along the top, so that you're overlapping the side mouldings. Nice flush line at each end, and then also that flush line along the top there. Remove that bit of excess glue, and then we'll do the bottom one. So the outer two are slightly wider, just so that they cover the side mouldings as well. Just trim a little slither off there. Let me check that one. A little bit more. So put that one into place again so it's flush with the back of that side moulding there. And then what we'll do is, when all of these have dried into place, we'll go around and we'll round off all these edges and get all of these mouldings to blend in. Put one in as well. And then these two will sit within those pencil lines. And then we'll have those equal sort of distances between them. Make sure it's sitting straight along there, and then push it down. That looks quite good, doesn't it? final one then. Just a little bit too long, so that's all popped into place. Like that. So we'll leave all of these to dry now, and then we can sand again on all sides to make sure that everything is flush. And then, like I say, we'll round around these corners and make them sort of all blend into one. That will look really nice. And then we can attach the plinth and the top, and then this piece will be ready for paint. So once you've allowed enough time for the glue to dry, you can sand the piece on all sides, and that will ensure that we've got nice flush joins all along the mouldings, and also that we've got flush edges along our shelf and sort of back area here. So do that with it flat on your sandpaper and go around in small circular motions. And again, I won't do it on camera because of the awful noise, but I've done this piece all the way around. And then take a piece of probably 240 grade sandpaper, in the wrong position there, and we want to sort of round over these corners just very gently, but just to sort of blend in these mouldings. So sweep the sandpaper along at a 45-degree angle, so you're going right along the corner. And then what you can do is sort of do from back to front, or front to back. I keep thinking this is the back of our counter, it's the front. And just sort of sweep it over the edge so that you're sort of blending those into a nice rounded edge. You don't have to go too much with it, just a really sort of gentle round. And let me show you that now from the top. So see how that's just really gently rounded off? And that looks so much nicer then than that sort of really square, blocky edge. And you only need to do it at those two front corners. So I'll tidy this one up a little bit more and then do the other one. So that's both of my corners done. And then after all that sanding, you want to remove the dust with a soft brush. So give that a really good brush off. So we're now ready to attach the plinth to the bottom of the counter. So obviously the counter is the same, but with your plinth you want to apply the glue on the side where you can see the joins. So where we put that nice flat bit on the top, that will become the bottom, and then that will sit on there like that. And we're going to attach it so it's right in the centre. So all the way around we'll have that nice lip. So apply glue to the plinth. And I'm just going to apply it straight from the bottle. Like that. Let me find a glue spreader. I'll spread that around. Usually I've applied a little bit too much. Piece of card there to wipe the excess on. Make sure you get it right into the corners along the edges. And I've got my masking tape ready as well, and we're going to attach this with masking tape. We'll secure it with masking tape. Okay. And I'm just actually looking as well for the nicest side of the plinth, which I want to be actually at the back of the counter, so visible when the shop door is open. So get it into position, and you can sort of slide it around if you need to make sure you've got that nice even border. And of course this plinth bit is optional depending on the style of shop that you're building the counter for. But I would say if you don't put a plinth on the bottom, then use a thicker piece of wood at the base, just to make that look more like a bottom edge. I'll just hold on to that and get rid of that excess glue. Quite a bit along the front there. And just be really careful when you're handling this, because again we're making a sort of a larger piece of furniture. You have to be careful with these large sheets of wood, because if you press on them too hard you'll end up splitting them. going to put a couple of pieces of tape right over the top, and my battery light is flashing, so I better change that first, otherwise it will run out while I'm in the middle of doing that. I'm going to put a piece across this front edge as well. And then I'm just sort of checking to see if that's going to be sturdy enough to actually put a few clamps in, and I think it will. But what I'll do on this side is put another couple of strips straight over the front. Okay, pull that nice and tightly. Another one there. And then let's put a couple at the front. You can see already it's trying to, you know, come apart. It's separating. But as long as you're putting the clamp onto the piece of sort of front strip and not going too far in, then it's not going to split the wood. But just be really careful when you're attaching those clamps. So we'll put one at each end there like that. Be really careful. If you start hearing any little cracks, then quickly take it off. Well, let's get a few in the middle. If I put one right in the middle, and you don't have to leave them on for a long time, just until, you know, the glue has set. You don't have to wait until it's completely dried, which takes obviously a few hours. And then I'll get one more in there, and then that's nice and tightly fixed onto there. Okay, so that can be left to dry, and I now want to prepare the countertop. So to prepare the top, we're going to round off each edge on both sides of the piece of wood. So again, hold the piece at a 45-degree angle, and as you sweep it towards you, bring it into an upright position. Do that on each edge of the wood. And then do it on the underside as well. And then, as always, just finish that piece off in your hand with a piece of fine grade sandpaper, just to really tidy it up. And then sand the surface of that piece as well. So the countertop can now be attached, and again we're going to position it so we've got an even overhang around all edges. So I'm going to apply the glue directly to the top of the counter again. Try not to put too much on this time. Let's see if that'll do it. Spread that out again. And again, I've got my clamps here and my masking tape. So put that on like that. Feel with your fingers that you've got that nice overhang, and then you can actually pick it up and have a look. I was way off there. Bring it over a bit. I can come back a little tiny bit as well. I didn't use too much glue, so there isn't much to remove, but I will just go along that back edge with a cocktail stick. Like that. And then we can apply the tape again, and then we'll put the row of clamps along this edge. Pull it nice and tight again. Again, I'll put a couple of pieces over and onto the front. A bit of gapping along there. I'll put a bit in the middle as well. Okay, and now let's get some clamps along the front edge there. Like that. And then that piece as well could be left to dry. So the counter is now dry and I just popped it into place to see how that's going to look. So we've got a little bit of space at the side there, just over an inch, about 30mm, and the same at the back of the counter, and that would be the space obviously for the shop assistants to stand, which in real life would be a lot more. But I think we can get away with that in 1/12 scale. And then the door of the shop opens sort of alongside the counter here. And then we'll still be able to see into the shop over the counter, and we'll be having that corner shelf unit over there. And then some separate units in the middle here, but everything at the back will be seen. And you'll sort of angle your head and come around like that. So what I want to do now is apply a coat of paint to the counter, and I'm going to be using the Vancouver for that, the emulsion, which I used for the unit upstairs. I really like that colour. And then, and I've already cut the pieces, I want to make some of the little shopping bags to go on the top of the unit upstairs. So let me just bring that unit down. And I can't remember if I told you now, but the other thing I did as well was use tacky wax to secure all of these little jars into place. So they're all now secure on there. So the only thing I haven't sort of glued into place is the cushions, but they're holding themselves in quite nicely. They're sort of packed quite tightly in there. And if any of them did fall out, they're not going to damage themselves or anything else. So that's okay. And then what I've actually done is cut the bases for my shopping bags, and I worked it out so that I could have an angled row along the top. So I'm going to be making 7 bags, and I'm angling them like that so you can see them nicely from the front of the shop, and they'll all sort of line up on there. Now I'm sure you've seen my shopping bag tutorial. It's just where we make a little wooden base and then we fit fabric around it and then some handles as well. But I will do it again here, and they're super easy to make and they really do look good. And I'll be using all these lovely fabrics that we've used for the cushions. So that's going to look nice, and I'm looking forward to getting on with those. And then I thought for the rest of the episode we'll just make some bits. So I wanted to have a go at making, we were going to do some chicken wire, just loose doors to stand on top of the fireplace. I can't remember if I was going to do that downstairs or upstairs, but we'll make the doors. And if I take you over to my notice board, my pin board, where we had all our inspiration photos, here are the doors that I'm talking about. Hope you can see that there. Because all these pictures have been on here for a while, they've all sort of started to curl, but I can still sort of see them. So it's like almost a little window frame, and it's got chicken wire on the inside, and then it's got a few little random shells and some, can't remember what they call that now, but you know, those little like flags on string there. So I thought we'd make a couple of those. And I've got those lovely little miniature shells that Jill sent, so we'll use some of those. But each time I come to the shop, I do come to this notice board and have a look and just get a little bit of inspiration or a little idea of what to do next. And these are the shelves that we have in that corner. And we'll be making all of these little crates and bits to go underneath. So I really can't wait to start making all of those sorts of things. That's the little unit we'll have upstairs next to the big shelf unit we've just built. We built in the last episode. So yeah, let's get a coat of paint on the shop counter, and then we can just start having a play around and making some nice little bits and pieces. So I've applied 1 coat of paint to the shop counter, and that's now drying. and I now want to make a start on the shopping bags. So measure them out along the top of your unit, or decide upon where you want to put them, and that will determine the size of your base. But just to let you know, my bases are 33 millimeters by, I think it was 15, yes, 15 millimeters. So that's 1 5/16 of an inch by 5/8 of an inch. But the beauty of these bags is that you can do the bases any size you like. So if you just want to make a couple maybe to stand around the shop, you know, on the other display units or what have you, then you can do these little base parts whatever size you like, and then I'll show you how to attach the fabric. But before we do that, I just like to shape off the corners of these just to make them a little bit rounded. And as usual, you do that on your sandpaper, flat on your work surface. Start off at a 45-degree angle, and then just sweep it towards you like that, and then do that at each corner. So when you've done all 4 corners, then tidy it up in your hand with a piece of finer grade just to neaten those off, make them more even. So just really sort of gentle rounding off. But it actually makes the bag look nicer once the fabric is on than having those really sort of sharp square corners. So do that with each of your bases. Okay, so I've cut the fabric here for the 7 shopping bags, and I've gone for the fabrics that I've used for the cushions, and then I've thrown in this lovely sort of life belt fabric with a splash of red. And I think red's a really nice nautical colour to contrast with the blue and whites, and it will add a nice splash of colour to that corner of the shop. So to get the size of the fabric for the shopping bag, lay the little base piece along a piece of fabric, leave a little bit of a border at one end, probably about 3 millimeters, roll that along like that to get the length, and then you want to leave a little border at the other end as well. I sort of skid that along there, but you know what I mean. Just use all 4 sides to get your length, little bit of border at each end. And then have a think about the height as well. So I've just measured the height at the top of the unit to the ceiling, and I want the bag to be about 30 millimeters high and then a little handle. So I've got about 45 millimeters free up there, but I obviously don't want them to be touching the ceiling. So I've cut that a bit shorter, and then we need to glue over a hem at each edge, each long edge of the fabric. So do the height that you actually want the bag, and then plus I don't know, probably about 5 millimeters for each hem, and then you can glue over the bottom one and then measure your top one exactly so that you get the bag the height that you want it. Okay, so I've got some glue here, so let's start gluing down the hems. So I like to begin by actually folding the hem into the fabric, or creasing it in, and that way it glues down a bit easier. So I'll do the top one. I'm doing probably about 5 millimeters there, just under 1/4 of an inch, and then apply glue. And again, I'm just using my Gorilla Wood glue, which I find works really well with fabric. And then I also find if you just let the glue dry, even just for 30 seconds, when you then fold that over, it's less likely to soak back through the fabric. So whilst that's just drying for a moment, I'm going to start the next one. And again, just fold over my hem. And these are just to make nice, neat top and bottom edges to the bag. And if you were sort of doing a little display, a little shopping bag, or you actually wanted to put, you know, a little packed lunch and things for the beach in there, you can even line these. So you sort of glue over the top and bottom, and then you can glue a liner in as well if you wanted a contrasting fabric inside. But as these are just going to go sort of up on that top shelf, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep it really simple. But you know, you can really go to town on these. You can add little embellishments to the handles and things. I've seen some really nice bags on Instagram and things, you know, 12 scale bags. Maybe go onto Instagram and search for that hashtag and get a few ideas. So glue that down like that. And I'll do that one as well. Put that over there. And then you can just bring in your wool. You know, this is if you want your bag to be an exact height, otherwise you can just sort of judge it by eye. But I want mine to be, it was just actually over 30mm, so that little fold I made earlier was actually correct. So then fold that down to the height that you want the bag. Like that, just make sure. Yep. And then again apply your glue. So do all 7 pieces of fabric, and then we'll attach those to the base, and then I'll find out some contrasting fabric and we'll make some strips for handles and a little bit of edging around the bottom of the basket. And the sun's coming out again now, and it's just been raining 5 minutes ago. I'll leave that for a moment then, and then do this one as well. So to attach the fabric to the bag base, apply glue along the bottom hem, and then we're going to attach the fabric so that the join will become the back of the bag. So take one of your bases and lay it sort of roughly in the centre at the bottom of the hem, and you want the bottom of the fabric to be flush with the bottom of the base like that. Press it down and then pull up one side. Keep it nice and tight around the base and keep that nice flush bottom edge. Press that down, and then you can put a little bit of glue along the sort of vertical edge of the fabric there, and then bring this side around and join at the back there. And then press those back seams together. And if you've got stripes, you can make sure that you're joining along a stripe so you know that the bag is going to be straight. Squeeze those together, and there's our basic sort of bag shape. So pop that to dry, and then we'll be adding some handles and a little edging around the bottom there. I'm going to stand that in that nice sunny patch and then do the next one. And I came up with this idea quite a few years ago actually, and it's so simple but they look really effective. And this is something you can use in any project, in any room of the doll's house. I've had these sort of in kitchen displays before, filled with some lovely little shopping bits. A bunch of flowers poking out, magazine. And we may make a few more of these to go sort of down on the ground floor shop area. We could perhaps put things in them, have things standing in them. I'm just pinching that top hem together to get that nice and straight. You can pinch the sides out like that to make it into more of a sort of bag shape. But we can do that when we come to add in our handles and things. They look really good, don't they? That one there. So do the rest of your bags. I think I need a little bit more glue on my card. To make the handles and the bottom trim, I'm going to be using ribbon, and this is 3mm wide or 1/8 of an inch wide. But if you didn't have ribbon, you could use fabric, and I've got some scraps here, and then you could just cut them into 9mm strips or 3/8 of an inch, fold over each long hem to create like a bit of binding really. or you might have some sort of fabric that doesn't fray, so you could just cut it into 3mm strips. So I want to begin by actually creating the handles, and the handle is going to go along the front of the bag like that, and then we'll create the little handle up there and then bring the ribbon down so that the same side of it is laid flat against the front of the bag. The handle you only want to be probably about 6mm high, so don't have them too long. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side and then put the trim around the bottom. But you don't have to do the long handles like that. I like the look of them coming down the front of the bag, but you could just use a smaller piece and just do a little handle at the top there like that. So just begin by, I just want to cut a little straight edge at the end of this piece of ribbon. Sort of start at the bottom there. So begin by measuring what you're going to need. So obviously you want it the height of the bag, and then enough for the little handle, and then down again on that side. So trim that off and then cut 2 pieces like that. And I've got lots of little pieces left over here, so just fray the end of that one. We can hide the frayed end under the sort of bottom trim, and that's actually the right size, so that's good. So apply glue to each end of the ribbon and just leaving that little bit free in the middle there for the actual handle. A bit too much there. So you want the glue to be sort of applied to the height of the bag. You can just check that by laying it alongside like that, so that's about right. And then the same at the other end. So I want to go just above that little crease. Fine glove leather is really good for these handles as well. So lay that down the front like that. And you want to leave a little bit of gap in between them. You can just do that by eye, but you want it to be, I don't know, probably about 9mm again, or 3/8 of an inch, but you don't have to measure, just do it by eye. Like that. And then press that down, and there's the first little handle, and then we want to copy that at the back at either side of the little seam there. Is that the bit I cut? I don't remember now. So again, apply the glue. I just actually want to come over with that one. I'm going to glue it over that seam. Again, put your fingers in there and press that down. You can pinch these sides out to make it into more of a sort of shopping bag shape, and then we'll put a bit of trim around the bottom there. That might be a bit too short. Let's have a look what I've got. I want to use up all these little bits, just see if that'll be long enough. And again, you want the join to be at the back of the bag. I might just do it actually. Oh no, a little bit shy. Let's try this piece then. So again, you can apply glue to your piece of ribbon. And you can actually lay that across the front of the bag so that you're sort of leaving an even overhang at each side. Again, get it nice and flush along that bottom edge. Just sort of putting it on and pulling it off there. And then you're covering up the bottom of those handles. Like that. That really neatens it off. And then come around the back. Just twisted it there. Actually what I'll do is I've twisted this side, so I'm going to bring this one round. And then I can just trim that off and just overlap it there. Actually stuck the ribbon to itself there. Let's see if I can pull that apart. I know it's round the back, but it just feels a bit funny just gluing that down, looking like that. I'll put a little bit more glue on there. You feel like that though, even though you know it won't be seen, you still sort of want it to look right. And then glue that side down. So not as neat as I would have liked it at the back there, but the front looks really nice. And there we are. I think they're really easy to make, and they make a lovely little shopping bag. So that's the first one. And I've got a nice selection of blues here to use for these. I did have a look to see if I had some red, but I only had sort of like a wine colour, and it clashed a little bit with the bright red on there. So I'll use this nice sort of sky blue for those ones. I think that will look nice. Before I get back to the bags, I just wanted to show you, I don't know if you've seen my little garden visitor before, this little muntjac deer, but she's taken now to sit in that little space under the conifer trees there, and I'm going to zoom in. I don't know how clear it will be, but she's sitting in there now. Can you see? And she's been coming to the garden for quite a while now. And she usually goes in a sort of larger hedge where we can't see her, but just lately she's taken to sit in under there, and I think it's a lovely safe little spot for her because she's covered around the back and then she can see most of the garden from the front. And we put seed out for the birds, which she enjoys. We don't try to go near her, but sort of the minute you open the back door she runs off. But if she can see us moving about inside, she stays. I think she's getting used to seeing movement inside the house. But it's just so lovely to look out and see her there. And there has been a male roaming around the garden as well. And the male has the little horns, and he's quite a bit larger than her as well. So hopefully we might see some baby muntjac deer soon. So there are the completed bags, and I'm really pleased with the coordination of the ribbon and the fabric. Now some of the ribbon, they're not completely dry yet. I did just put them on the heater to try and get them to dry off. I think they're still a little bit damp, and you can see the glue there beneath the ribbon, and I think that's just because the ribbon is so fine. So if you can use a slightly thicker ribbon, because it hasn't done it on all of them, this one is slightly thicker and darker in colour as well, so you can't see the glue, but on the lighter colours you can still sort of see the glue drying under there, so hopefully that will dry out completely. But I am now actually going to glue them into place on top of the unit, and then we can get that back into place in the shop. So the bags are now all glued into place, and that has now dried. So now for the fun part, and we'll actually put the unit back into the shop. Just a little bit shy of the ceiling there. And I think that looks really good. Really adds a nice splash of colour in that corner.